you're new to pastel pencils, you might be wondering if you can erase your work if you make a mistake. Now, while pastel pencils are a wonderfully forgiving medium in some ways, erasing them can be a bit tricky. So let's have a look at whether you can rub out pastel pencils, when it works, and the best techniques for fixing any mistakes in your artwork. So can you erase pastel pencils? Yes, you can, but to some extent. It does depend on a few factors. Now, unlike graphite pencils or coloured pencils, pastel pencils leave a softer, powdery mark on the paper, which can make them harder to fully erase. Pastel pigment clings to the paper's texture, so completely removing all traces can be difficult, especially on rougher surfaces. On the textured papers like Pastel Matte or the Canson Velvet, pastel pigment adheres more firmly to the surface. Now, this can make erasing nearly impossible once the pigment settles into the paper's texture. Also, if you've layered multiple layers or you've even used a fixative spray, removing pigment becomes so much harder. So you really do need to take extra care when you are working on those final layers. However, don't despair. There are a few techniques you can try. So what techniques work best for erasing pastel pencils? Well, a kneaded eraser is a soft, flexible eraser that can lift pigment off the paper without smudging. You can mould it in to reach tiny areas, or you can press it lightly on the paper to pull up that colour gradually. Now, this is the best option for lifting colour without creating too much mess. Another option is a battery operated eraser. Now, if you need precision, a battery eraser can work wonders. These erasers rotate really quickly, allowing you to lighten or remove pastel in a specific spot. Now, they're especially handy for creating highlights or even fixing fine details in your artwork. Now, the taping technique is where you take a small piece of either low-tack masking tape or sticky tape, and you can lift the pigment from the surface. Place the tape gently on the area you want to remove, then lift it up. And this technique works really well for larger areas or when you need to start over a section. Now, I like to use the taping method to actually lift detailed sections. So by placing that sticky tape down and going over the top of that little mistake with a scribe tool or the end of a paintbrush, you can lift that pigment up. So what do you do if erasing doesn't work? If you can't erase pastel pencil marks completely, there are still ways to fix your mistakes or adjust your artwork. You can layer over your mistakes. So pastel pencils allow you to layer up your colours. So if you make a mistake, just try covering it with a similar or lighter shade. You can even go in a little bit darker, add some shadows, and this can help blend the error into your artwork. You can use a white pastel pencil. So a white or light pastel pencil can sometimes cover up your mistakes quite effectively, especially if you're using a lighter paper. It may take a few layers, but it can certainly reduce the visibility of any errors. Like I said, you can add highlights, you can add shading, and by turning your mistakes into lighter or darker textures, can just add depth to your artwork and make small errors less noticeable. So while pastel pencils aren't as easy to erase as regular pencils, they do offer enough flexibility to lighten, adjust and cover mistakes with just a few techniques. And by using tools like kneaded erasers, battery erasers and layering carefully, you can enjoy the forgiving nature of pastel pencils without worrying too much about those pesky little mistakes.